WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 21 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I use synthetic oil in my car, Robin. Synthetic oil.
Yes, you do.
I was reading that synthetic oil isn't truly synthetic. It's made from natural things that we get out of the earth, like natural gas, I think. I'm not really sure about that. I can ask. Our next guest might have an idea. Our next guest is also an expert on the Keystone Pipeline.
Yep.
He is on the phone. Real short visit with him, though, so let me get right to him. Dr. Bernard Weinstein is on the phone. I used to have a teacher named Mrs. Weinstein.
Oh.
Dr. Weinstein, our guest, is an economist. He's the Associate Director of Southern Methodist University's McGuire Energy Institute. He's a contributor to the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and we're proud and honored to have him as a guest on our show. He's talking about the uncertainties of natural gas and oil and gasoline prices and how it affects the possible drilling off the coast of Florida and everything in between. Dr. Weinstein, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
Well, actually, today I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm speaking to their Rotary Club at noon, and then tomorrow I'm going to be in Florida, in Orlando, speaking at the Rail Safety Conference.
Oh, wow. So you're making the rounds, trying to spread the word about what you are familiar with, right?
Well, I try to talk about sensible energy policy, and we don't have one in this country. And as you know, we've seen a pretty dramatic drop in oil and gasoline prices over the past 8 months, and consumers are real happy about that. But there's a downside to falling oil and gasoline prices as well, in the sense that I'm concerned that it may derail this energy revolution that we've seen over the past 7 or 8 years in the U.S. And we've talked a lot about energy independence ever since I can remember, and we're almost there. But OPEC is trying to prevent us from getting there.
Okay, and our way to be independent is through the fracking, is that right?
Well, hydraulic fracturing combined with horizontal drilling has created an energy revolution. We've seen a doubling of U.S. oil production since around 2008, and nobody saw it coming. So today, the United States is the number one oil and the number one natural gas producer in the world. It's been a real game changer.
Okay, now we used to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we used to? I should ask it as a question. Didn't we used to be the number one oil producing nation?
Well, we were the number one oil producing nation back in the 1960s, and then OPEC kind of got ahead of us, and so did Russia and Saudi Arabia. We thought we were running out of oil and natural gas in the U.S., but as a result of what's sometimes called a fracking revolution, as I said, we've seen a doubling of oil production over the past 7 years, and we're now producing more oil than we ever have in the past.
Okay. See, I guess I misunderstood what fracking did. I thought fracking pulled something different from the earth than the traditional oil like you would see in the...
No, it's just a different technology. What you're basically doing, put it in very simple terms, is that you're teasing oil and gas molecules out of shale and other hard rocks before they form reservoirs. So it's like we're advancing the clock for 1 billion years. We could wait 1 billion years, and a lot of those hydrocarbons would become reservoirs that could be tapped. But what we're doing is kind of accelerating the clock by going in and capturing those hydrocarbons while they're still in the rock.
You know what I've never understood about the Keystone Pipeline? Since we're such friends with Canada, I mean, Canada and the U.S. are as close as two nations are ever going to be. Why do we need the pipeline? Why don't we just take the oil out of the ground up there and then process it up there, refine it up there?
Well, there are lots of issues here. We have lots of pipelines across the U.S.-Canadian border. This one is really no different. But the environmentalists have decided that Keystone Pipeline is the litmus test for Mr. Obama's commitment to green energy. You see, environmental community pretty much is opposed to any projects than increase the production or consumption of fossil fuels. What they say is they're all bad for the planet. We don't need them. End of story. That's why they oppose the Keystone Pipeline. That's why they oppose oil exports. That's why they oppose offshore drilling.
Okay, but at the same time, they're driving cars, they're flying in airplanes, and they're using the same fuels. And it would be, you can't mention oil without mentioning plastics and pharmaceuticals as well. I mean, all of those things are made from, it's not just about energy.
And clothing.
And clothing, yeah.
Of course, but nobody has ever accused the environmental community of being intellectually consistent. But that's just the way the game is being played. And let's face it, they have a very sympathetic ear with President Obama. Now, I don't think Congress is nearly as sympathetic towards Mr. Obama's green agenda, but
doesn't the
president wants his legacy to be number one, Obamacare, and number two, what he calls his climate action plan, which basically means shutting down all the nation's coal plants and increasing our dependency on renewables like hydro, solar, and wind.
Okay, but isn't the oil still coming across the border in trucks and trains?
Well, that's true. Because there isn't enough pipeline capacity, more and more crude oil is moving by rail tank car. Now, that's making the railroads real happy. They're making lots of money, but it's a more expensive and much more dangerous way to move oil around. We've seen a number of very serious accidents, including one 2 years ago in Canada, in which 47 people were killed.
So one of the issues that we'll be talking about, I'm sure, in the days to come, and that's the drilling off the coast of Florida. What will that mean for us?
I don't think we're likely to see drilling off the coast of Florida for a long, long time, partly because of the drop in oil prices, partly because of environmentalists pushing back against drilling. You know, Florida, it's interesting, depending upon who's in the governor's mansion, they're either in favor of offshore drilling or they're opposed to offshore drilling. But the reality is we don't even know how much oil and gas is out there. There is going to be, the Obama administration is going to allow some seismic testing so we can get a sense of the inventory, the potential inventory of oil and natural gas that exists on the outer continental shelf. But I would be very surprised if there's any drilling off the coast of Florida, or for that matter, anywhere off the Atlantic seaboard in the next 10 to 15 years.
Let's wrap it up with websites, if we could. Some way for our listeners to look into this further. Do you want to give us a website or two?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to Google us. It's Maguire Energy Institute, MAGUIRE. And if you Google Maguire Energy Institute, you'll find out a lot about who we are. We have lots of publications on our website, lots of charts and graphs, and I think your listeners may find some of that information quite interesting.
All right, good information. It is a controversial thing, but it always seems that it's a little bit of hypocrisy when I hear somebody talking about a need to stop using oil and then they fly away in their plane.
Yes, definitely.
Or they tell me to use a 30-watt light bulb, and they've got a whole stage full of lights that they're standing under to tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think a certain amount of environmental regulation makes sense, but this administration has pursued what I would call environmental overreach, through executive action, not congressional action, and so there are all kinds of constitutional issues as well as environmental issues.
Thank you, Doctor. We have to run. We'll be right back.
Pat O'Neill. They're there to comfort their survivors. Volunteers in Sicily awaiting some 24 Libyan migrants from a boat that capsized in the Mediterranean.
We are here in Catania because we want to hug the migrants, the new European that are arriving here in Catania.
It's believed only about 50 of the 700 on board survived. International migration officials say they've received distress calls from 3 more boats in need of help.